Yeah, my mother and I used to fight, but I think internally, because, she was the typical shouter all the time. She was shouting. I felt like it was her fault that my dad was in there.
Oh, man.
So for a very long time, I never had a good relationship with her.
Yeah.
And for a very long time, I was just like, okay, fine, whatever. There you are. But that woman has taught me a lot.
Yeah.
She's taught me about the value of relationships and friendships.
Hey, yo, what it do, what it does it. Welcome to another episode of the Intentional Conversations podcast, a podcast where we get to explore life, faith, creativity, and everything else in between. Today we've got a special guest, a good friend of mine. They call her Lele, they call her Yoyisa, they call her Mini Vibes. How do you like going?
I'm good, thanks, Lex. It's so good to be sitting here with you, especially like as a friend. You get to chat, and it's good to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing good as always. I'm excited for the conversation, for the chat, mostly because of some of the stuff that you're doing. Thanks for coming the second time. We did a podcast and then we lost some of the files, and now we're sort of back to it. We're sort of back at it again. I enjoyed hearing about how you grew up. Tell us about you and how you grew up and how you got to where you are now.
Cool. So I am a girl from Kokodala in the Eastern Cape. So I was raised by a single mom. I was raised with my sister. And then life for me was quite interesting because at the age of 6, I went to boarding school. And that was because my mom at 29, I think, she went back to school and then...
wow, what? To study what?
To study teaching.
Wow.
Because she had 4 brothers, and then my grandpa was like, the boys must study. Then they were all like, no, hi. Then by the end, my grandpa was like, it's fine, you can study.
Yes.
So it was like, later.
Yeah.
So then she decided to go back to school. She went to Forte University.
Yeah, come on.
So what that meant was I went to boarding school. My sister, she left my sister 2 weeks with my gran, and then she went to study. So I am I'm a town girl because I spend more time in the town.
In the boarding school.
Yes, at boarding school. So I'd go home every Friday.
Wow.
And because there's a border, Monday to Friday. And I think I loved just growing up here. Like I grew up with the boys. Queenstown, yes, Queenstown.
Wow.
But I was like mainly with the boys because all my cousins were boys. So like playing soccer on the streets. I lived 2 lives because there I was. Because my other cousins went to school in the village and I went to school in town. So I came back and then we were together. And then it's fine because then we didn't have electricity. So a generator would go on. And then sometimes after generations, we have to turn it off. And then sometimes later when we were about in grade 7. So that was just life growing up. Didn't grow up with my sister because she was with my gran.
Yeah.
And then also didn't grow up with my father. So it was mainly just me and my mom, and I always had cousins that lived with us. Yeah. So I have many siblings that are not siblings, as you do.
When you look back and reflect on your life, what were some of the things that happened in your childhood that have actually shaped you to being the person that you are now?
So I would say I think definitely growing up without a father, probably the biggest thing that shaped me because we were very close. So I think after he left, I grew up with a lot of insecurity. So I craved love, like Kemazumtu that craves love.
Yeah, you were in the Mjolo streets quite a lot.
I was. Yo, I was
on
the
streets. My sister, you ran the streets.
I ran the streets. Yeah, like I said, I was the girl that was always dating. I was dating to break up.
Yeah.
I was breaking up because I saw somebody. I dated a guy, and then as soon as he was serious, I would break up with him. Because for me, I think relationships ended. Relationships were divorce. Relationships hurt. So as soon as the guy was very serious, I was like, it's time to call it a day. And I mean, then I didn't have words for it. Then I just was like, no, dude, we're done.
Yeah.
And brother's like, what's happening, you know? And then he sees me with somebody else the next day because by the time I break up with you, I already know who I'm going to date next. When I was never single for too long. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that shaped me. I think even in friendships, I was very insecure. So I would be friends with you, like, hold on, you know. But even if you were wrong, I would apologize.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
so you don't talk to me for 2 or 3 days, I'll be the girl that will come and say, you know what, I'm sorry. Because I felt like I had to work on relationships and I had to work for people to love me. I never believed that I was lovable.
Intrinsically loved,
I never believed that I was good enough. And I believed that for love to work, I'd have to hold on.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing. And I think at school, I was always doing sport. Like I was either doing sport, whether I'd be debating, whether I'd be speaking. And then it's because I was keen. But looking back, it's because that affirmed me. So I was the girl in the first netball team from like a young age, you know. So I'm walking, you know, like feeling good and stuff because those things filled me up and they affirmed me. So I'd say that I was empty in my life. I lacked love and I needed love. And you think it ends when you are an adult. And it didn't. I think it just came out in a different way and in a different form. So whether it be working, because I work full time when I'm not coaching, in my corporate life, I was very insecure in my early 20s. So I wanted my boss to always be like, you are the gal, Lily, you are the gal, you know?
Yeah.
And when they didn't, I didn't feel like I was good enough, you know? So I think those are just some of the things that,
sort of like,
that just shaped who I was.
Wow.
And I think how I am now is because I had to ask myself the question, because I remember going into work and constantly feeling empty and constantly, because for the first time in that job that I did, I wasn't achieving. So I think lots of my worth came through, I'll always do well. You tell me to do something, I'll do it well, you know, and that made me feel good. But at this job, I wasn't shooting the lights out, I wasn't terrible, I was just here. And then it shook me because I wasn't getting the affirmation from my bosses. I wasn't getting the, Lele, you are the gal, you know, but rather I felt like I wasn't good enough. And I remember sitting after our second born, I sat and he was about two months old, and I just said to myself, if I stay in this position and if people don't tell me that I'm good enough, am I going to live my life always waiting
for people to tell me?
Yes. And I think that's when the shift, like it
kind of hit you.
Like it hit me like a ton of bricks. Because then I think I realized for the first, I knew it, but I made the decision that I need to drive my own life and I need to take control of my own life. And I cannot wait for my boss to tell me that, Lele, today you are doing it, you know. And then when he doesn't, I'm like very insecure and I don't feel good enough, you know. So then I decided that I need to know who I am. I need to find my identity in Christ, and I need to walk that road. And I think that was a very big transformation, I think, in my life and in my marriage. Because also, I mean, I got married. They call me like a child bride, getting married at 21. 20.
Whoa. Luxolo, what were you doing at 21?
What were you doing at 21? Tell me.
Sure.
You know, so 21, turning 22, I was very insecure as well in marriage.
Sure.
I was always waiting for Cam to affirm me, waiting for Cam to say that I'm good enough.
Good enough, yeah.
And then to make it worse or better, we plant a church, you know, in the mix of it. And that's people. And people, I mean, come with their stuff and they're like, this is how I feel. And I think then also that crushed me as well. And it showed me that. But I think a pivotal point, like to Cam's strength and to Cam's, I always am so grateful to God for that he was the person that always saw me and the person that always was like, there's more to you, you know. So I'm also very grateful for also his constant encouragement and affirmation, that because it's easy. I'll ask you this afterwards, like for a guy, like why, like guys can crush you, because I guess now I can tell you most what to do because you're insecure. If I say do this, I'll run. If I do this, I'll run. But whereas Cam, he didn't want that. He was like, there's more to you. There's, you know, and that's what he pushed, and that's what he went for, in a sense. And I think even like just to ask you that question, like do you find that with guys, why do you think guys sometimes do that? Or do we as females just assume that guys sometimes want us to be, thank you, Baba?
I don't know. I don't know. I was trying to get insurance. And so obviously I had all these million whatever people call me. And so we're just sitting there, you know, once Iggy was working, I was here getting all the calls. And this one Zulu lady, oh man, I don't know how she says, when I said, yo, so Baba. It just hit me different. I was like, so nice to be called Baba. I was like, this is nice. I was like come listen. This is how it's done, you know? But anyway, I mean, on a serious note, I think you know, we all need affirmation to a certain level, but I think it hits women very differently to how it hits men. And I'm seeing more and more that, like, I value more how maybe I am respected than maybe more than I am affirmed as a man. But I do think, like, you know, with women, for my own wife, it's like, you know, affirmation is a very big sort of part in that. And I don't think it's like, it's not unhealthy. I think it's just good.
It's important.
Where maybe respect for me is good. Do you know what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying, so it's more respect.
See me more as Nzotza. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, where I do think, because I see it, like it's the constant asking, how am I looking? Is it okay? Like you know? Where maybe I'm not as sort of as affected, but you know, the need is a bit bit different. And probably has the same root cause. You know, we want to be seen, we want to be loved, we want to be, you know, we want to be known. So you were speaking about that. What was some of the positive things that has shaped you to who you are now, especially even what you're doing now? You know, maybe how you grew up, the things you experienced. What is that one thing that was like, wow, I liked growing up?
Yes.
I've never heard of it. But you know, growing up that side, and even in the midst of this negativity and discomfort, I'm sure there were some good positives.
Definitely. I think living at Kokotala and being like a simple girl, I think I enjoyed simplicity. I enjoyed the times where I could just play with my cousins, where we just went on a bike. All my mom cared about, especially when we went to my grand's house at Krukoako, which is close by, when my mom grew up. So my grand was just like, like by the time it's dark, you come back, it's dark. My cousins wake up, they have to, because they had animals, they had to go by you know, so I loved that. I feel like it's taught me a lot about who I am, and also just enjoying the simple things in life, and enjoying the like, it doesn't have to be glamorous, it doesn't have to be glitz.
Come on.
I think I learned the value of education. So being like a first, you know, so my mother did it, and her imparting that, because I mean, like, she took me through school. Like, my mother she was a principal, she had a shop, and things are like bricks and stuff, you know. So that was to make sure that my sister and I were taken care of. So she was an entrepreneur. So I learned a lot from her about the values of hard work, about going for what you want. And also not letting life sort of beat you down, you know, because I guess Mama had every right for that to happen, because I mean, she could have just said, it didn't work, this is where you're going to end up. But I have seen that woman do everything she can for my sister and I, and not just for my sister and I, like I was sharing earlier, my cousins as well. I don't remember like living in my house where it was just the three of us. There's always been a cousin or cousins
that she was helping, took
that
in.
she was, yes, they like I've got three cousins that they're like my siblings, like three of them.
Wow.
My uncle's kids, they lived with us, one since she was 5, and you know, so they're like, even now we're like siblings, you know. So and my mom raised them.
Wow.
But I also remember her youngest brother coming to stay with us at some point, or like even now she still has people staying at our house. So I think that's probably one of the most positive things that I learned. I think just watching my mother parent, and I didn't understand then, because I think we weren't always close. So my mother and I used to fight, but I think internally, because, you know, she was the typical shouter all the time. She was shouting. I felt like it was her fault that my dad was in there.
Oh, man.
So for a very long time, I never had a good relationship with her. And for a very long time, I was just like, okay, fine, whatever. There you are. But that woman has taught me a lot. She's taught me about the value of relationships and friendships.
Hey, thank you to everyone who has been supporting the work that we are doing on our Patreon, giving monthly to us. We cannot do this without you. If you'd love what we're doing and want to help us create more and more of this content that you are watching, please make sure that you can click on the link below and you'll be able to give us monthly. It starts off at an easy 150 rands per month if you're in South Africa. And so we would love your support to help us be able to create more and more of this content. Thank you.
So whenever we had things, because she's like the matriarch, her friends were always the ones that were there, and doing all of these things. So she valued relationships, and she does to this day. And those are things that
She's still teaching?
She's retired now, living her best life.
Come on.
She's still got the shop, because my mother, she'll never just sit and do nothing. You know, so she's just like, no. So she goes and she does the shop.
Sure.
But I was very proud of her when she retired. She came to Cape Town. And then Cam and I like took her to get her like her car, like she bought it cash. She was like, yes, I'm doing this one, mom, you know. So she's worked really hard, and just to watch her see the fruits of her labor it's been incredible. It's been positive, and a lot of who I am. I think I know for sure. It's because of the positive influence of my mother and the positive woman that she was, because I actually now look and I'm like, jeepers, woman. Like,
how did you do this?
How did you do it? Raising us, going to school, even encouraging, like, especially relationship with my father. She was always positive about him. She was always have the relationship, you know. So I've learned so much from her, and I'm so grateful also, like, for my past. I think being in Cape Town, being in the lights, like, no, it looks glitz and glamorous, working in banking, that's my life. But I'm just like, there's value in that.
What does home remind you of now?
Home, for me, it reminds me of hard work. It reminds me of safety. It reminds me of strength, because my mother was strong. I think even for me, it just reminds me of perseverance and how far we have come. But then there's a part of me that I'm like, I just miss that. Like the whole, like when my cousins, my younger cousins are there now, they don't like go out as much because, you know, so I think I miss that. But it's a happy place. It's a place I love to go. It's a place I love to sit with my mom on the bed, and because we still talk a lot, where we can talk and connect and just reminisce. And a place where I'm grateful that my mother built. And
it's special to have a place that you can, you know, sort of call home. And even if you're in the city, you can consistently sort of gone back to. You've started a business.
I have.
Entrepreneur girls.
Yes.
Yeah. What do they call female entrepreneurs? What is it? I don't know. Is there a vibe?
It's like they have this thing like boss babes.
Boss babes. Come on. Boss babes. I think you celebrated, I saw 2 years.
2 years, yes, 2 years. Let me move this.
What has been the hardest thing?
The hardest thing being in business, I think it's the hardest yet the best.
Yeah.
It's you know?
Yeah.
I think it's the building actually of it. So like people don't tell you when you get into business that truly you've got to whack, it doesn't just happen.
Yeah. Great ideas don't work.
Yes, they take
by themselves.
Exactly. They need somebody who's there. So I think for me, that was probably like quite tough to also...
Because you're also balancing your 9 to 5.
Yes, because I'm balancing my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But also, I think this year, particularly for some reason, I've been sharing a lot of my stories, just that growth. So I've been growing. So like, it's almost like I was on honeymoon. Like it was nice. Things were ticking. Yeah. But now I think I got to a point where I was like, okay, it's been 2 beautiful years with you, Isa. But now what's the next? And I found myself, what I'd say is probably the hardest patch of my business and of my journey. I was sharing it with a friend. I was saying, this is when people quit. Yeah. Because I literally one day honestly sat down and I had to make a decision that I'm not quitting. So to stay in my business was a decision. Because
it's easier to quit.
Yes, but it's also now, exactly, but now the feelings, it's not the feelings that drive you. It's the need to be. So I think also like we don't talk about the mental capacity that takes.
It takes. Yeah.
I've got to change systems. Like, what does the next look like for me? So I found myself a lot of in the next, but that's also tiring because you're making decisions, because you're thinking, because you're not working on a high, but rather now you made the decision, implement. Because for me, I'm like, quitting is not an option. That's not going to happen.
Come on.
But now I'm doing the hard yards. I'm doing what does this going the long run look like? What does it working? Because a lot of life coaching, like they'll tell you that a lot of it at the moment, because it's small, it's me. So if it's an event, I do it. If I'm speaking, I do it, which I love. But then now it's how do I also put systems in so that I can still soft money. I can still make money while I'm not physically there.
Yeah.
So I think it's all of that and trying to figure those things out. And I think I've found myself in what is the hardest part of it and the difficult, and it's probably, the messy middle.
It's probably tough, but I think it's probably a very good season because I think it's going to teach you quite a lot. What do you think for you would be the biggest temptation to quit?
The biggest? Honestly, I don't. The beauty in making decisions, I think it's that. So I'll just take us back. Like also, I think the mindset. So I speak a lot on mindset.
Yeah.
And why mindset is so important and why you've got to get into something with the right mindset. So even when I see clients, we speak about like mindset, what are your limiting beliefs? Like what happened in the past that you don't believe this? What happened that you're doubting this? So I'm also very big on doing what I teach. So I will never, for me, Yoyisa is me. So then I've had to do a lot of my mindset personally because
a lot of work,
because also sharing because sharing my story with you now, I've had to work hard to not base my business on what people think because that's the natural lele. So a lot
that needs affirmation.
Yes,
see, I'm
it's
listening.
You are listening. Thank you, Lex. High five.
I'm trying.
So I know for me that would probably be the biggest temptation to quit if I would not do the hard work.
Yeah.
Because when I'm not working on myself, when I'm not being intentional about my journey, I go back to that. And sometimes I do even now, and I've got to like call myself back, like, gal, ooh, yeah. Where are you going?
What's popping?
Yes,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So I think that would be the temptation, but because I've also been intentional about my mindset, I know that quitting is not an option.
Yeah.
So even when I'm in this tough growth season, I'm like, mind, it's temporary.
Yeah.
You're doing the hard work now so that in a year's time, when it's 3 years, you like, yes, you put in the work. But I think even for me and even other people, it's just the mindset. What is your mindset? What do you believe about what you're trying to do?
Come on. I mean, I think as I wouldn't, as somebody who started a business with this and our music stuff, it's been a very interesting sort of journey, and wanting to quit, wanting to not quit. You pray, then you're like, man, Jesus, and then you're like, just kind of, it's like it's a bit up and down.
Yeah.
But I've actually found that entertaining the idea to quit is not a bad thing. And the reason why entertaining the idea to quit is not a bad thing, because sometimes in that confusion, there could be something that potentially God could be opening up you to, right? But also sometimes it's like, you shouldn't quit. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't quit. You should actually stick with that discomfort, or with that hurt, with that sort of kind of, as you call it, like that messy middle, like stick with it, because that's going to like give you the ability to create the systems and the structures that you are wanting in the long run. And maybe that discomfort is actually like, incredibly helpful. But also I think like sometimes entertaining the idea to quit gives you new ideas.
Yes.
So we started the podcast, we were just purely making music to actually, okay, cool. We love the music and that's what we do.
Yes.
We're doing these shows, we're touring the country. Let's start a podcast.
And is that how it started?
And that's sort of literally how it started.
Amazing.
And we had a big plan. We had like this cool big dream. We're gonna have like 3 or 4 of them. It's gonna be like this little network vibe. We kind of had like we kind of had
the plan.
We had the plan. Yeah, we don't have all of that now, but it's like sometimes that discomfort and. It wasn't sort of just brand building. It was actually, how do we pivot what we are doing in such a way where we still get to do what we are doing. We still get to somehow still impact people, have dope conversations. That's why we're making the music. Right? We're making music so that people can talk about it.
Yes. They must talk about it.
Talk about it. Yeah, that's it. Like it's... you just like randomly meet someone. We're not even famous. Like you randomly meet someone and they're like, bro, somebody sent me a song and this is what they said. And I'm like, oh, wow. We do it for the people. We do it for the people. And we do it with the cool heart. So like, okay, cool, let's pivot.
Yes.
And then we stumbled into the sort of podcasting thing, which we are really, really enjoying.
And you said that word like you were pivoting. So what was that pivot like for you? Was it scary when you decided to pivot, or was it just easy?
It's an identity. For me, it was an identity issue. People knew me as a rapper.
Sure.
And it's what I've been doing for the last 14, 13 years. So it is the tag that I want to forever have on you. And so it's like, okay, cool, stop making music. Stop making music because this thing failed. Yeah. So now, like, let him try be like a Nike and make a podcast. You know what I'm saying?
He's doing plan B.
Yeah, he's like, this is the plan B.
Yes.
Like, and you're trying, shame, you're not that cool. Oh, okay.
We can see you.
You can do a podcast.
Yeah.
Right. And I think part of that is I know people are saying that because they keep asking me, when are you dropping music?
Yes.
I'm like, hey. Telling a mameli walungulo in the first place, I'm telling you all of a sudden interested in even in this, like, when am I dropping music? It's like, oh no, actually, I think for me it was a big identity thing.
Yeah, sure.
It was a big identity thing.
For you personally?
Not for me personally. Okay. I've always seen myself as multi-dimensional in the sense of, I do a lot of kind of things. I got my hands in many different pies.
Yes.
But when people see you as something, it does hit you a bit different. Now I feel bad I'm dropping a podcast and not dropping a new song.
Sure.
Because that's what I'm sort of putting out. Or like maybe, and then someone says to me, like out of just like love, hey man, like, I see the podcast. Have you stopped doing music? Yeah, like, have you stopped doing music?
Yes.
And then in there, I'm like, people are just going to see me as a podcaster. And then they're going to think I failed. Yeah, I think I failed at the music.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe because the podcast is getting more traction, it's like the obvious thought is, well, okay, fine.
Confirms the bias people had.
Yes, and it's confirmed the bias. So I think it was a big... It not as a big, but it kind of it hits me every now and then when people sort of throw those unnecessary comments. But I could not be doing a podcast next year this time. Who knows? And I could just be like an actor. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think you're saying something so important because I think lots of people. The reason why we don't grow as people is because people, when you get to that pivot. People freak out. Like as a person, naturally what people do is, but I said I am singing. Or like I could say, but I said I'm doing this and I don't. Yeah. And I think we don't talk enough about the fact that actually pivoting is so important because often it's at that point that the next big thing comes. Yeah. But so often, like, people are like in their heads, like, what are people going to think? Yeah. What if I fail? But I have always done this. But actually pivoting is so important. That's why lots of people are also not in their next to what they should be. Yeah. Because we actually, we stuck ourselves. Is there such a word? We keep ourselves stuck because we're so afraid. But it's almost like if you are in a point where you need to pivot, it's scary. I think we don't talk about the fear that you are going to be scared, that you are probably going to doubt yourself. You haven't done it. So therefore, what's going to happen is you're going to freak out, but those things are okay. It's often when we take those great leaps, when we do those scary things, that the growth happens. Yeah. And especially, like you're saying, if you're multi-dimensional, we speak a lot, I think, especially like in my coaching spaces, a lot of people speak about how you need to like sit and do one thing, like look at that. Yeah. But I think there's so much value in that, especially when you're starting. But also at the same time, you could also be multi-talented individual.
We're not multi-talented. We're just like 50% everything. We can sort of just do enough just to kind of get by.
Get it, but also it's okay to explore and to discover. I think what I'm saying is we need to be true to our journey at those points of pivot. Because I think far too often we look for permission to live.
To do the things that...
Yes, like to do the things that we want to. And I know this because I did that for the longest time. Again, I say, recovering people pleaser. Like I almost needed people to like affirm me all the time. Like, Lele, it's okay for you to do this, you know? And so often we don't grow because of that. Like you're waiting for like these damn people to come and say, yes, you should. But people are busy with their own things. And it's so important to just heed to that uncomfortable moment and to sit with it and to say, I'm scared, I'm freaked out, I don't have the resources, I don't know what this is going to look like, I might fail, it might not work out, but those are good questions. Because in sitting with that, you then do the next. And in saying I'm scared doesn't mean you're weak or that something's wrong, but it's because this one thing is important to you. And if something is important to you, you're going to care about the outcome, but it doesn't mean then don't sit and not do it.
Yeah, don't sleep on yourself. Don't sleep on your dreams.
Sleep on yourself.
But if you want to be a boss babe, I'll put down all of the links so that you can get in touch. You do life coaching, you do coaching, you do public speaking, you run a consulting business.
Yes, so it's a consulting business.
Briefly, just tell us in 5 seconds.
Cool. So basically, it is called Yoisa Consulting Life Coach. So there I do emceeing. That's actually, funny enough, the Lord opened those doors the most.
Yeah.
So I do emceeing. I do one-on-one.
That's because you're a great speaker.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Come on.
So I do emceeing. I do life coaching, so one-on-one coaching. I actually did a course last year as a group exercise fitness instructor.
Wow.
So now I'm going to be starting exercises. I already do one on a Tuesday for someone else on Zoom. So I'll be doing getting into fitness and just helping women.
Moving your body.
Moving your body and drinking your water.
And
those
your
things
water.
are...
Stop drinking coffee,
No, this is important as I do my coffee.
Well, I'm proud of you. Thanks for sharing your journey so openly and speaking so vulnerably and so openly to us. And keep flying. Keep hitting and... I'm interested to see how you'll continually pivot.
Thank you.
But also, we have to build what we have to build for not just our own benefit, but also, hey, what does this thing look like a couple of generations under? And I think, keep building because our future generations will have to look at you and say, man, if she could have done it, what more could I achieve?
Exactly.
Keep flying high.
It's so important. Thank you so much. And thanks for the conversation.
Yes,
It was so good to be here. I feel like the time went fast. Did the time go fast?
The time went fast. But I'll put down all the links if people want to get in touch. Please, guys, make sure if you want to get in touch, if you want to book a consulting thing, I am a life coaching or coaching, I'll put down the Instagram. Thank you so much for listening to this specific episode of the Intentional Conversations podcast. Please make sure that you leave a review on if you're Apple Music or Spotify. And also if you are on the YouTubes, drop a comment. What stood out to you? What didn't stand out to you? If you have a specific question to Lelethu, drop it down as well. Blessings and love. Ay.
Thanks for having me.